One of the most common questions I get asked is how do I keep wax on my board? The biggest difference between surfing and kite surfing is when you're kite surfing, you're standing on your board 100% of the time. So ultimately you're going out for a session, and opposed to surfing where you catch 5 or 10 waves in a whole session, which maybe equivalates to 5 minutes on your board, you're having an hour or 2 hours on your board. So what happens is the wax on your board heats up and it moves around your board, and it's like having 30 surf sessions in one. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips on how to make your wax last longer on your board. Tip number 1 is always use a warm water wax. Doesn't matter what temperature water you're in, you need to understand that when you're standing on your board for long amounts of time, it's going to heat up your wax at some point, so you always have to use warm water wax. Tip 2 is make sure you have a nice base coat. It's really important how you apply the base coat. When you're applying it to your board, you want to do it nice and light, not really hard, because what happens is when you do it really hard, it creates lumps in the wax. What you ultimately want is a nice, smooth, even coat over the entire board. And I like to get an initial layer on the board and then keep adding to that layer so you can slowly see it build up and filling in all the gaps. All right, now that we've got a good even base coat over the entire board, now we're actually going to apply the wax coat to go and have a session. So we're just going to do this in circular motions, being nice and firm without being too firm and rubbing the base coat off. Another thing that's really important here is that when you're applying wax to your board, don't do it in the sun. Try and get in the shade or get in at least room temperature or some air conditioning if possible, because when you're putting the wax on your board, it also creates heat, and it's just going to make it harder to do.